Okay, so let's do just one more example of this with the algebra, okay? Kind of work through our steps here. And then we're almost done, okay? So I've got an equation here. X squared minus y is 2, and 2x minus y is -1, okay? I've got a system of equations. It's nonlinear because there's a square on the x, right? So in order to find where these two intersect, this is going to be a parabola, this is going to be a line. We want to try and either use substitution or elimination, okay? Now on this one, these guys don't match very well, right? This one I have an x squared, this one I have an x. Now you could still do elimination with this one if you eliminated your y, okay? But I'm going to do substitution instead because these two equations don't match very well, okay? So I'm going to do this by substitution. So what I'm going to do is I want to solve for one of the variables in the equation, right? So I solve for a variable. I'm going to use this one because it doesn't have squares in it. I'm going to solve this one for, let's do y, okay? So I'm going to solve for y. We get 2x minus y is -1 is what we're starting with. To solve for y, I'll move the 2x over. So I get -y is -1 minus 2x, right? Then I'm going to divide by the negative on both sides. So I get y is, that'll just switch both of these signs. Okay. Y is 1 plus 2x. Okay? And maybe I'll write up here, I'm using substitution. Okay? So I'm solving for a variable. Whoa, substitution. Should be an S here. I don't have you guys here to correct my spelling. Where are you guys? I need you. Come on. Okay, so we've got y equals 1 plus 2x. Okay. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to plug that into the other equation for y. So everywhere there's a y, I'm going to put this 1 plus 2x in there. So I've got x squared, right? Minus y. So I'm going to plug in this. 1 plus 2x. Be careful to put parentheses, right? Because the minus goes to all of this, not just the one thing, not just to the 1. Okay? And this equals 2. Okay? So I've got this set up. So I'm going to distribute it through my negative on this. We get x squared minus 2x. I'm just going to put that first because that's normally what I do. Minus 1 is equal to 2. Okay. And now I have a quadratic equation. To solve it, I want it to equal 0. So I subtract 2 from both sides. I get, this is a -1 minus 2 is going to be minus 3 equals 0. Okay? So to find x, what I need to do now is try and factor this equation, right? I need to try and figure out what values of x will make this true, so I try and factor. So I look for what numbers multiply to -3, this number, and add to -2. Well, those numbers would be -3 and +1, right? So this would factor as x minus 3 and x plus 1 equals 0. Okay? I'm going to maybe scroll up here. So what does that mean x has to be? We just flip those signs and we get x is +3 and -1. Okay, so those are my values for x. Are we done? I hope you're all shaking your head vehemently at your camera or your laptop or whatever you're watching this on, saying, no, we're not done yet, Mr. Green. We have to find y too, okay? So what we do is we take our x and we're going to plug that into the equation I solved for y. So I get when x equals 3, what is y going to be? I plug in 3 for y, I get 1 plus 2 times 3, which is 7, right? 6 plus 1 is 7, okay? When I do x equals -1, I plug that in for x. What do I get? I get y is 1 plus 2 times -1. Right? I'm using this equation that was solved for y. So I get y is 1 plus -2 is -1. So those are my two answers. When x is 3, y is 7. When x is -1, y is -1. So we've got 3, 7, and then -1, -1 are my answers. Okay? So what were my steps? I used substitution. So I solved for one of the variables, and then, so that's what we did here. We found out what y was. We plugged it into the other equation, and then we solved for x, and then back substituted to find y. Okay?